Let's give them a hand as they come on up. I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Cindy Baer. I am the director, and I was a producer, writer, and actor.
And I'm Matthew Irving. I was a co-writer and cinematographer.
So as we know, it takes a village and an army to make a film happen. So if there's anybody in the cast and crew you want to acknowledge, go ahead.
Absolutely. The first person that we have here is our star, Tegan Ashton Cohan. If she wants to stand up. Woohoo! Was she amazing? And we have Scotty Dickert, who plays Spuds. There he is, Scotty.
That's Spuds, man.
And I think I saw John Alton, who plays Audrey's dad. There he is.
All right.
And I know we saw Loretta, the salon woman. There she is over there. And is there anybody else here that I didn't see? That's it.
That's everyone.
Thank you,
Cool.
guys.
Yeah. So for everyone in the audience that, to know and those who are watching, we do these as an encouragement to you guys to learn how a film is made in hopes for you guys to maybe create your own work and learn the ins and outs. And the first place we always start is the first place that you guys have to start is with a story and script. So how did that kind of come to be? What was the process with that?
Well, I guess the story, do you want to start with that? Because I was working on another movie.
Yeah, she had her previous movie, Purgatory House, was doing the festival scene for a few years. And we were actually in Plymouth, Massachusetts at the Plymouth Film Festival.
Well, and I was driving you crazy with the film festival.
So Hell Is Here is a bit of a parody of Purgatory House because she had a good 10-year run. No, it wasn't 10 years, but it was going on for a long time, and it was festival after festival, and I made jokes with her that she was going to make action figures, and then she was going to do toothpaste and cereals. So
he was saying, it's time for a new project.
Right. So we were at the Plymouth Film Festival where Purgatory House was playing, and at this beautiful little bed and breakfast, and we just started kind of brainstorming. We kind of started thinking about our own experiences in the business. I'd been a cinematographer by that point for 10 years, and she'd done so much acting and been around so many sets and so many eccentric people. Let's just so we started trying to think of all these things, and we thought the kernel of the idea, right, was that there's a lot of people out there that are struggling at jobs.
Yeah, I guess we were kind of talking about...
We could talk about that, yeah.
Just things that were happening in our lives and the people that we knew, and how it's just this crazy paradox that we knew so many people that wanted to be artists or entertainers, and they were so good at other things. And even though they were so good at that, that's not what they wanted to do. And just that crazy thing, like, why would you be born with this passion to do something when you're so good at something else? And I think that's kind of where the seed came from. But also, with my first movie, the theme of it basically was kind of about taking responsibility for your life. There's this teenager, and she has all these issues. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like we're responsible for our own happiness. And at the same time, I had a friend who was really unhappy in a job. And I kept saying to her, why don't you quit your job if you're so unhappy? You're so good at this office job that you could go back to doing that. Why don't you give the creativity thing a shot? And I think that's sort of where the seeds sparked from.
Yeah, it was just kind of a big what-if situation, and then created this eccentric character out of that. And then the character, Audrey, we wanted kind of a really lovable character that you'd root for, even if she's not really making it. I hate to use the word lovable loser, but just to give it a label, because she's a winner in the end, so she's not. But we always really respond to, we're very inspired by Wes Anderson's films and movies like Harold and Maude, these films that have a very earnest sense of humor. They're not mean-spirited. You're rooting for the person even though they're very eccentric. So we wanted to do that kind of thing. We wanted to do the kind of comedy where you're laughing with the character instead of laughing at the character.
Yeah, so basically we kind of came up with the main, I guess, kernel of the idea that there's a woman and she quits her job and she kind of goes off to do this thing. And then we sort of brainstormed what the story points would be. and got basically a general idea of it. And so then we had the first draft of the script, which at that time didn't really, it didn't have any romantic kind of theme to it, because we really felt like, why do movies always have to be about relationships? You know, why can't it just be about this woman who wants to be happy with her job? Right. And
yes, we absolutely we're bound and determined to make a movie without romance, without the love interest, and then we started seriously thinking, what movies are out there that don't have that? And we came up with 3. We came up with Apocalypse Now, John Carpenter's The Thing, and Lawrence of Arabia.
Right, right.
So we thought, this isn't that kind of movie.
Yeah, so we went with it, and it's funny because now I like it even better. You know, I think that is where the heart comes from, and even though Matthew Kevin Anderson can't be with us, who plays camera 1, I really feel like he has a lot of heart that he brings to it too. I think it really takes a generous actor, just on screen and off screen, to support another actor in that way. So, yeah, so I think that's how it first came about.
What's really funny, too, is in our first discussions, I mean, we had been to the Sundance Film Festival a lot of times, and we were kind of thinking, we had all these themes we wanted to capture, and we also, we knew what the characters were going to be like, but we decided we were going to try to make it a little bit edgy, because we thought, well, Sundance always has these edgy films. So we started, in the beginning, it was a lot more sarcastic, and there was a lot of kind of just edgy. There were animated sequences that were edgy.
Yeah, I like the animated sequences.
Not all of them. The beginning ones were edgy. But, yeah. And then it's funny, and we showed the script around to some friends, and we got some notes back, and kind of draft by draft, we bled the edginess out of it, because it's just not us.
And I think too, we were out to some bigger producers, and they did respond really well to it. But then when we decided to kind of do it ourselves, we no longer had to be thinking about what was going to sell, quite frankly, and we could be more true to ourselves. And I'm so glad we did that too, because I think in the end it's really important to be true to yourself and the message that you want to put out into the world.
But it didn't play Sundance.
And that's okay, we didn't expect it to.
How many drafts did you guys go through in the process of finding that?
How many was it? Was it 5-ish?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably 5. I remember one time Matt was away shooting a movie as a cinematographer, and he came back, and I had added 3 scenes. But
yes.
And he got used to them. But.
We had a nice collaboration going. I mean, I consider I'm pretty good at first drafts, but I'm not a very good rewriter. And you got to be a rewriter to be a writer. So luckily, that's where Cindy came in, because I would just spit out that first draft in about 5 or 6 days, and then based on all the notes that we had done together. And then it just really started to take shape as Cindy we'd do the rewrites together, but she'd be the lead on the rewrites.
And we kind of put it out to industry friends too. The one thing I feel when you're writing a screenplay is we show it to people and kind of send it out anonymously and say, be brutally honest. It doesn't help me for you to tell me that you love it. Tell me what's wrong with it. And then all the notes that we got from people that were in common, whenever we started to get the same notes from several people, those are the ones we took the most seriously, and we knew it wasn't really as much opinion as it wasn't going over so well. So yeah, so I'd say it was probably about 5 drafts.
And about how long time period was those 5-ish drafts?
Well, we wrote them fairly quickly. The first draft, gosh, took you...
There were some periods of time when I'd be off on a lot of jobs and you'd be busy with other things, so the draft would sit on the shelf for a little while. So it's a little deceiving. It wasn't as if it was full-time once we got rolling on it.
I would say all of them just took a few months, but then we were shopping it around and then put it on the shelf for a little while.
One of the most dramatic changes is that we were living with, the draft had pretty much solidified for a while, and then we decided that we loved these characters so much. We love Spuds and Camera One and Audrey and the way she interacts with them. So we just kind of decided we needed more shenanigans. So that whole bit with the house and the answering machine, that whole thing didn't exist in the first drafts, I think multiple drafts. And so we went off to a picnic in Palo Verde, and we just decided to brainstorm shenanigans, and we came up with that whole scene and kind of just dropped it in en masse in the middle of the movie. And I think it's great. You need that kind of thing to just be with these characters through some goofiness and grow with them.
Yeah, I can't imagine it without that now.
And then by the time you got to about the 5-ish draft, when were you guys kind of ready to know that you're ready to move into pre-production and kind of get the ball rolling? What was it for you guys that?
Well, I kind of had a gut feeling. We were going off to. All right, we were going off to Sundance, and I had been really, really sick. And I never get sick, but I was really sick. And somebody said, you know, you should watch the movie The Secret. And I don't know why, but I threw it in. I was really resistant watching it. I know this sounds all crazy, but I threw it in. And somehow when I saw it, it kind of reminded me just about the magic in life when you just put things out there. So we were going to Sundance, and there was an actor that I wanted to meet there. And just with this whole idea in mind, we pulled out the script and kind of brought it to this person, and things just kind of magically happened in that time. And I think that's kind of what got the ball rolling again. And it was an actor from Saturday Night Live. And I kind of thought, oh, wow, I have this interest, and now I can go out to bigger people and get a lot of money and do it big. But it didn't really work out, but I kind of spent some time pursuing that for a while. And then we kind of put it on the side, because then I felt kind of weird about it. Oh, I don't really have the funds to be able to afford this person. So it just was a little awkward. So then I think maybe like 2 years later, pulled out and went, okay, now is the time. We're just going to do it ourselves. Even though we had some offers from some production companies to kind of take it over. You know what? We're going to do what we know best, do it ourselves, and kind of take it from there and kind of start fresh.
It was actually, you had a relative that passed away, and it was kind of an epiphany for you that seize the moment, seize the day.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. So yeah, a couple years after that, bam, yeah, this person passed away.
And the script had solidified by that point. We weren't doing, we knew that it was sitting on the shelf as a ready project, very, very,
yeah, so I
primed to go.
Picked a date. I said, I think it was August 28th, and that's what I always did, and work backwards. So pick the date on the calendar, and then that was going to be when principal photography was going to start. And then I just kind of put everything on the calendar, just all the steps that need to happen until then, backwards. And yeah.
And did you start working thinking, okay, I need to raise X amount of dollars first before I start getting my crew together? How was your process in kind of that pre-production phase for you guys?
Well, when we had the script, originally we had done it in a much larger budget, like I mentioned too. And in fact, we had a huge musical number that happened right in the middle of the movie, and I'm so glad we got to keep that. Even if
this
it was
musical number was supposed to span all of the recognizable movie studio gates. So it was supposed to take place in front of Paramount and Warner Brothers and all these things. And
so
not so much.
But but that's okay. But
Process of pre-production. Did you raise a little money first? Did you get people signed on first?
So had the script, and that was a much bigger budget. So then I kind of went through it and figured out what I thought we could get away doing it for bare boned, and then we just started thinking about crewing up. And Matt had worked on a show with Tomei, who ended up producing with me during principal photography. He thought we would hit it off, so she came on as my producing partner. And so between Tomei and myself and Matt, we started kind of calling in a lot of referrals and people that we knew, and then showing them the script, and luckily they liked it, so a lot of people wanted to be involved, but it was a lot of calling in favors, and then, fundraising, and between individuals, we got a lot of things sponsored. So again, kind of calling in, favors and
I have no more favors left in town.
Yeah. But
can you talk about how important it is if you don't have the money, the free resources kind of can cover the lack of funds? Can you talk about that, your guys' experience with that a little bit?
Well, gosh. I think if you just build relationships, and for instance, we had camera equipment sponsored and rigs sponsored, and even the face masks. Lush Cosmetics gave us the face masks, and
that wasn't one of my favors that I called in.
And then MAC gave us all the makeup for the actors, MAC Cosmetics, and so it's harder now because I think there's so many people doing micro budgets to kind of get things sponsored. So I think you really just have to figure out who you know and what your resources are, and then go to those people.
Some of these were long-term relationships that we never knew would lead to this. So it's just keep in touch with all of your relationships. Be good to them. Don't take anything for granted, and you know, things come
Thank people
around.
a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing how far you can get just by being a nice person in this town, and you know, actually not burning any bridges, making sure that you know, you pay back in energy or when you can.
Yeah, we always say that too. You know, my philosophy is I'm not really looking for a favor. It needs to be kind of an equal energy exchange. So there just really needs to be that kind of give and take. So even though I call it, you know, calling in our favors, at the same time, I'm always, you know, even now, years later, we've been on the festival circuit for a year now, you know, I'm always trying to pay back, because, you know, without our community, we're nothing. And I'm just so grateful to everyone that came together and made this happen. Because I do think for a micro budget, it was really large in scope. We had 30 locations, we had 54 speaking roles, a ton of background. We had over 80 music cues, including, you know, 2 really big songs, an unreleased song from Eric Bazillion, who's an Emmy Award-winning musician who was in the Hooters Grammy. Shows you where my brain is.
Tomato, tomato.
But yeah, so I'm really proud of that.
And, yeah, and it was also
Thank you.
Let's talk about kind of that scope a little bit, because it is a huge scope. How did you handle that on such a micro budget, on such a small kind of like producing team and everything? Because you know, films with that scope have many more producers. So how did you guys wrangle that and figure that out and make that happen?
Planning. We planned
All about
everything. One of the nice things about having living with your DP is that, and writing with your DP, is that as we were writing the script, we talked about the whole thing visually. So by the time it came to production, the whole I think we shot listed a year before we actually had principal photography begin. So yeah, it's all about preparing. And that being said, even so, sometimes I use the analogy, I felt like we were on a train and the track was being built as we went. There were roles that weren't cast while we were shooting. We still hadn't, I still hadn't hired a composer for that ending musical number that was gonna be shot the last week of the production, and we were 2 weeks in. So we were all just working really diligently, and at the same time, I'm proud to say we never had more than a 12-hour day, though. Although I was only sleeping 4 hours, but yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the idea of being wearing multiple hats? Because if we have some actors out here thinking about making their films, they might want to act in it, or they might want to direct, and they also have to produce. So how did you guys balance all of those kind of roles, and when did you have to divide things? When did it get difficult? All those kind of.
I think the main thing is you really need to know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and the things that you're not strong in yourself, you need to find complementary people. And it's hard sometimes because I think it's easy to have a false impression of what you can and can't do, because I've seen it happen time and time again. So again, it's with that honesty and going to people and, you know, saying, hey, do you think I'm good at this? Am I good at this? Knowing that you're good at something, and then that divide and conquer mentality.
And that whole, not to be redundant, but that whole idea of prep came in again because we shot-listed the whole thing together. Even when I don't live with the director, I'm big on shot-listing and preparing. Like my prep process on every feature that I shoot is very intensive, and a lot of directors thank me for it afterwards because it gets the burden of the vision out of their head and shared with me as the cinematographer. So I could kind of take that off of her plate and worry about those things, do the equipment orders and know that we'd have everything we need on the day, kind of prepare the aesthetic of the lighting, knowing that we were on the same page because of all the prep we had, all the movies we've talked about, and the shots that we came up with. So that prep process helps clear that part of her plate so that, you know, Cindy could be more free to worry about the directing and the acting and the other hats she had to wear.
Yeah, and a lot of the multiple hats things too come at different times of the production. You know, when we were writing the script, that's kind of, we're done with that. So now we're on to production, and I can really focus on directing and producing, and then the other things that kind of come later. I do think, or at least for me, it's really challenging being an actor in your own production as well. Luckily, we had scheduled the days that I was going to be on. It was the very last week, and I think I had 4 days. So by then, I was already really feeling confident, and I think it's really important, especially as a first-time director. I'd done quite a few things, but for first-time directors, to build up your confidence first, because those first 2 days or the first few days are going to be really rough, and you might be doubting yourself, and you've just gotta believe in yourself and kind of go for it. And again, with the prep, if you're prepared, you can just really focus on that.
Sometimes producers are called the ultimate improv artists because as much as you prepare during production, things happen. So this is a chance to kind of maybe take us behind the scenes of some of those shots. What things happened that we didn't know that you guys had to kind of improv in the moment to make some of those shots work?
Nothing. It all went exactly to plan.
Right.
Well, we had the day the gaffer didn't show up.
Yes.
And he had the truck, so...
Yeah, so that meant we had no lights.
The only lights we had on set were our little light panels, LED lights that had been donated.
That was the office scene.
Yes, when Rex is saying you have a promotion, and so...
And didn't that look pretty?
But we were able to pull it off. We were able to pull it off while Tomei...
Yes, kind of saved the day. By lunchtime, she had already hired a completely new gaffer. And I've got to say, things work out because he was so much better than the first gaffer that we had.
That gaffer that came in and saved the day is so good that I've gone on to shoot several features with him in my normal budget range after this. And so, yeah, he worked out great.
Yes. So there was that, the day the gaffer didn't show up.
Yes.
Oh, how about the day the van broke down
Yes.
that had our grip equipment?
That was the day Loretta was there.
Yes. And that was at the salon, so we didn't have a dolly, and so we ended up putting the camera on.
I was hand holding it on one of those chairs with wheels and just backing myself
in
up.
the hair salon.
Good times.
Yes, that was fun. What else was there?
Yeah, what else happened? I think those were the two main ones.
The two main ones. Talk a little bit about your locations. Where did you guys shoot at? Was it outside of LA, in LA?
We're basically in the Los Angeles area, a lot in the Valley, and locations are really fun. Matt, for Hollywood, Iowa, he had...
Oh, yes. I had that same movie that I had shot with our co-producer, Tomei, had shot up in Santa Paula, which has some beautiful groves of trees, and it also just doesn't look like it's anywhere near Los Angeles. So I did a little scout up there on the weekend, and I found that little street where she's hitchhiking with the sign, and it has a little farmhouse, and these giant trucks were going by filled with oranges, and we knew we could just have a truck go by on cue, and it worked out great.
It was so perfect because we had it written into the script, and it said these big trucks go by, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to find someone with a 16-wheeler? Like,
So that was a splinter unit. That was Cindy, Tegan, and myself up there in Santa Paula.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of the shot when the truck blows by and the sign flips off down the road after it. All we did was turn up a corner of the sign, and it caught the wind of the truck, and it did that. There was no...
all we did, all he did.
There's no monofilament or anything going on there. And that was one take. We did that on first
Yeah,
take.
that was
and then
pretty
we had
cool.
a decadent crew meal, the three of us, at Panda Express, I believe.
Big budget film. Big budget film. We're about to wrap up, but I'd like to give you guys a chance. Anything that you didn't want to share that you want to kind of leave as last bits of wisdom for maybe that first-time writer or first-time director, first-time producer to kind of go, okay, now that we've done it a couple times, and specifically with this project, keep these things in mind.
Well, I guess the first thing is just to reiterate prep.
Did we mention prep?
And then sound.
Yes. Sound. You can get away with bad cinematography and call it style. You can't get away with bad sound.
Yeah, so it's really important to pay attention to your sound, or else you're going to spend a lot of time and money in post. So, yeah, that's sound.
Yes, and luckily we had Vicky Sampson.
Yes,
come along
Vicky, who
as-
saved the day because we had some sound issues. So
She was what was her role? She was the sound designer.
she's a supervising sound editor, and so I guess those are the things. And
Yeah. I would say in this day and age also, even despite what I just said about you can get away with bad cinematography, I would honestly say production value matters. There's so much product out there right now. One thing we were really proud of in this film, and one thing that we were dead set on doing, is light it like a real production. Even if it had no money, we had smaller lights, but we still put them where you put lights on a big show. So everything was lit like a studio movie, just with smaller lights, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference when your actor catches that glint in their eye, or so production value does matter, and try try to get some lighting there, because these cameras can capture an image in almost zero light. But everybody's doing that. So you really can set yourself apart by just giving a little thought to the lighting and putting the production value a notch up.
Yeah, and I think the handheld thing's getting a little old, too.
Yes, we're very happy
We're
that most of the
past
film is
that.
locked down.
Yeah.
My favorite shots in the
just
movie are
justify.
old school shots when you can see all three actors in the same frame. Sure, we have the singles and we have the close-ups and all of that, but honestly, my favorite parts of the movie are watching Scotty, Matthew, Tegan on the couch, and your eye, you get to choose who you're looking at. That's cinema to me. That's, that's classic cinema when your eye is an active participant.
I think that's a good place to end. Let's give them a hand, guys. Yeah. Good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Please fill out the surveys and put them on the table, and they'll be around to say hi.